Papel Podcast, the number one place for everything Pangyas. And now your host, Michael Pierce.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Papel Podcast. My name is Michael, and today we are going to be returning to From Art to Model. Now, it's been a little while since we've created a From Art to Model episode because I've kind of been working on a few different projects on Papel Podcast, and I've also been very busy with my work life as well. Today we're going to be diving into an all-new project, which is really fun. I have been working on my own piece of fan art for Pangya based on a Dolfini from Pangya Mobile. He's actually going to be a Gachapon Machine. And if you guys don't know, a Gachapon Machine is like a toy capsule machine that you might find in shops and stuff like that. So without delay, let's go from art to model. So here we are back at it again, 3D modeling. Obviously, because it's Dolfini, I'm going to start with a very basic shape, which is a sphere. And to make things a little bit easier, I just cut it in half, because obviously the sides, both left and right, are going to be using a symmetry modifier anyway, because it's exactly identical. And then what I did here, as you can see in the background, I have a little reference for the Dolfini, specifically from Pangya Mobile. I wanted it to be the Pangya Mobile Dolfini because he does have a very different design from the PC and other versions of the game. And it's also the first time I've ever really modeled something specifically based off Pangya Mobile, so I thought it was about time to do that. And how I made that background texture was really simple. I basically got an image of Dolfini's face as best as I could facing the camera. Then I cut it in half, duplicated it, and kind of lined it up so then it fit and was symmetrical perfectly. And then I kind of built off that and used that as a general reference from his eye placement, his body lines, and his different textures. Now, by far the most interesting process of this whole Dolfini project was figuring out the topology for Dolfini. And for those of you who don't know what topology is, it's basically the flow of those white lines that you see. In 3D modeling, you want to make sure topology flows correctly and lets you distort and change the model where you need it to. If you don't get topology quite right, you get like these weird artifacts, and especially if the model's animated, for example, like a character model normally would, like for example Dolfini here, if the topology is just not right, when it moves it's going to be completely distorted and it's just not going to work really at all. So figuring this stuff out early on was really kind of difficult. I got some things a little bit wrong, which you can see I'm kind of fixing up with the cut tool here, which is really good. But after I got it all fixed up, it was really deciding where to go from here. And something I did, which I've never really done before, is take this low poly model and transform it into a more smoothed out high poly mesh. And I did that because I wanted this Dolfini to be kind of the glass shape of the top of the Gachapon machine, where all of the little Gachapon capsules will be inside. So it had to have a very smooth look. It had to be very high poly to get that smooth look, and I really wanted things to not feel jagged or rough at all. I wanted it to feel almost organic and clay-like in a way. Now I'm ready to create the back piece for this Dolfini, and I did this by basically grabbing an identical sphere as the one that we started with, and hand modeling the arms again, making sure it all lines up, and then the most important part is matching the topology so then I can correctly connect all of the lines. I also gave Dolfini a little bit of a shape near his butt, which is pretty funny. But yeah, it was really easy to match up the topology. It just mainly took a lot of time to get it right. I had to remove some loops and move some loops around and stuff like that, but all of it connected and looked really, really good once all together and all working correctly. And something you won't see here, but something that I did with this glass model, is I actually gave the line between these two models a little seam. And I did this because if you look at a lot of glass, especially in things like capsules and other gachapons, if they have a glass thing, they usually have to wield the glass together. So they usually have quite a small seam. It's very subtle, but it's definitely there, and I think it adds a lot of realism and just some extra polish rather than just having it completely normally connected together, which really honestly doesn't make sense. So once I did all that, it was all about cleaning up the topology and making sure all the smoothing groups are working correctly. I had some issues with these. This middle vertice was being a little bit of a pain, and I just made sure it's all symmetrical, all connected, and all working as it should. And after that, I eventually moved on to where the eyes would be. And the eyes I didn't really know what to do at first, because I tried modeling the actual eye itself and then kind of displacing it outside the model, but it didn't quite look right. It kind of looked honestly a little bit creepy. So what I ended up doing is making a very basic eye model, pushing it out, and then smoothing the result later with Turbo Smooth when I make it all into the more organic glass looking shape. So you can kind of see here I have the attempt of cutting out glass, and for the eyes it didn't really work well, so I'm glad I finally got to the final result. After the base was done for the glass, it was all about covering the top bit, making sure this model had a lid, and decorating it a little bit with my own touch. So what I added here, because it's sort of a lucky draw depending on what you get as gacha, I added a little 4-leaf clover to kind of signify that, you know, this is random, you might be winning based on luck or whatever it may be. And it also kind of tied into Dolfini's design in Pangya Mobile, where he does actually have a little leaf coming out of his head. So it kind of tied back into that and tied into the gacha system as well, so it looked really good. And this lid was really easy to model and connect, so luckily I did that. I did have a little bit of an issue when I was twisting this stem that attaches to the leaf. The topology was just kind of a bit weird and didn't quite work as well as it should have, honestly, but it worked fine in the end and it didn't really matter. So now that that's all done, we can pretty much move on to the base. Now I wasn't sure what to do with the base. This is where you basically have the turning wheel, which you turn, you put the coin in, and then your little gachapon comes out and you see what you won. But I wasn't sure if I wanted it circular. I initially tried some circle designs sort of similar to a gumball machine, but it didn't really have the right result that I was looking for, especially with the ready sphere shape, kind of rounded shape of Dolfini in the glass. So I ended up going with this kind of step ladder almost looking thing, where it just has a cube that goes down with an extra step out of the thing. So it was really fun making this. The modeling process did take a long time. I remember I basically did this, it would have been about 7 hours for the first day, and then I did a very on and off thing where I did it for about 3 days, and they took about at least a few hours each day, so it was a bit of a longer process, but it definitely turned out nicely. My favorite bit was definitely making the Dolfini in the glass shape. That definitely turned out best, and that was definitely my favorite part of it. But this is the final result. This is what my Dolfini from Pangya Mobile Gachapon looks like. This is kind of my imagining of what a real-life Pangya machine or Pangya Gachapon Machine could look like. Join us next week when I texture this model and give it some life. But until then, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!